Well, hello and welcome everyone to the Inheritance of Hope panel. This session is Loving Families Who Are Hurting. My name is Kim Bohannon, and let me share a little bit about how I got involved with Inheritance of Hope. In 2015, I was a caregiver. My husband, Steve, and our children, Emily and Jacob, attended a Inheritance of Hope retreat in Orlando. My husband at the time was diagnosed with multiple system atrophy, which is pretty similar to ALS. But we were served by Inheritance of Hope in 2015, and I've since gone on to volunteer at two different retreats, and I currently serve on the board of directors. So I'm really excited to get a chance to talk to these ladies tonight and hopefully get some tips and some ideas and just share some things that we have learned that might help others. So first, let me ask Ellen if she'll introduce herself.
Sure. I'm Ellen Case, and my husband and I and family were introduced to Inheritance of Hope in 2018 when our friend referred us to IOH. In 2017, my husband was diagnosed with pancreatic neuroendocrine cancer, and we attended the retreat with our two sons, Samuel and Daniel, who are teenagers now. We had a wonderful time at the retreat in Colorado, and it was a small retreat. It was 6 other families, so it was just a kind of a really perfect intimate setting for our family. And at the time, my husband was doing quite well. We came home from the retreat, and 2 years later, he was diagnosed with acute leukemia. And so he currently is going through treatment for 2 primary cancers, his acute leukemia and his pancreatic neuroendocrine. And our family resides in Rochester, Minnesota.
Thanks, Ellen. And I didn't realize that you were there. I volunteered at the Colorado retreat. It was amazing.
It was.
Yes.
Yeah.
And thanks for sharing that you're from Minnesota. I forgot to add in, I'm from Tennessee. So next, how about Becca?
Sure. I'm Becca. I have stage 4 triple negative breast cancer. I was diagnosed in February of 2020, and then we were served on a virtual retreat in August of 2020 with Inheritance of Hope. My family and I are married, and we have one daughter, Lila, who is 10. See, chemo brain already. I'm forgetting my train of thought. There was something else I was going to share. Oh, I know what it was. I currently co-host the Living with Illness Hope at Home group that meets on Tuesday nights right now.
Awesome. And then we also have Peggy joining us. Peggy, why don't you share a little bit about how you came to know Inheritance of Hope?
Sure. My husband was diagnosed with ALS in 2015, and I was looking for resources to help my kids deal with their parents' terminal illness. And I came across Inheritance of Hope. And then I moved to Minnesota, and my Bible study leader said, "Hey, have you ever heard of this organization called Inheritance of Hope?" And I said, "Well, yes, I heard of them, but I kind of put it on the back burner and forgotten about it." And so she encouraged me to apply for a retreat. And we ended up going on our retreat in May of 2017 in Orlando. And I since have gone on and I volunteered at a retreat. And my son, Isaiah Douglas, has volunteered on a handful of retreats. And I'm also give monthly to Inheritance of Hope, and I tell everybody I know about Inheritance of Hope. So I am super excited to be on this panel, and thanks for inviting me.
Thanks, Peggy.
And I currently reside in Utah.
Okay.
So, and my husband passed away. See, it doesn't take chemo brain. It just takes terminal illness brain, I think. So my husband passed away in September of 2020. So we are on the other side of this, and still hoping that my brain does recover some.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And thanks for sharing that point, Peggy, about giving back to Inheritance of Hope. For those of you that are watching, if this is your first time learning about Inheritance of Hope, I can only hope that you fall in love with this organization as much as we all have. I'm committed to giving back to Inheritance of Hope. I'm committed to paying it forward to other families. And it's just a wonderful organization that serves individuals so well, serves individuals who are hurting, and just provides lots of love. So let's talk tonight about some ways that people can help families that are hurting. And I think we're really fortunate that we have both patients, caregivers, and those that have been caregivers participating tonight. So it kind of gives people a good diverse group to think about. So one of the questions that I wanted to ask was, what are some examples of how others have helped your family that are maybe beyond the traditional casserole? And Ellen, I was wondering if you wouldn't mind to share something first.
Yeah. Although nothing to negate the casserole.
Yes, we love
they're
casseroles.
very big here in Minnesota. And we have benefited from the meal train, which has been very helpful for our family. But I think beyond that, I'm a true believer in support for our whole family. And so I'm a social worker by profession, a clinical social worker, and I've learned quickly in this that I'm not wearing that hat and that I need to reach out, whether that be for physical health, mental health, for my husband, myself, and for my children. So kind of tapping on those people that can kind of help fill the cup in that way. And again, a huge shout out for Inheritance of Hope, because they ended up being a great resource for my family and continue to be a resource. And we feel that love and connection and prayer. My sister helped me set up a Caring Bridge site. I'm not very technically savvy, but I found that was very helpful to have the communication that way versus having to navigate a lot of phone calls with people, well-intentioned people calling and texting, to kind of a place to put that. I come from a family of a lot of nurses. So just from a practical standpoint, helping me set up Brian's complex medication regimen, to troubleshoot when I'm concerned about that, linking my kids up with other caring adults and role models, whether that's taking them out for an ice cream or going to play tennis, and just kind of getting a break from just sort of the day-to-day, sometimes stress of our home. That's been really helpful too. And then, I'm really fortunate. I'm continuing to work, and I have a really supportive employer and work team. And so asking for what I need there and being graced with flexibility. I think the biggest thing is realizing it's okay to ask for help and be pretty specific about what that is, to be able to help get not only your needs, but your family's needs met. So those are a few examples that I can think of off the top of my head.
And I think, Ellen, you bring up a really valuable point about not being afraid to ask for what you need, because I know as a caregiver, that was something I always struggled with. I put my pride up there and said, "Oh no, I'm strong. I can do this. I don't need help." But I think that we often find that there are a lot of people that want to help. They just don't know how. So definitely giving specific examples. So I think those are really good. Becca, would you mind to share ways that maybe people have helped you, or something that's beyond, like we said, the traditional casserole, although we love food?
Absolutely. And, our story is a little bit complicated in the fact that I was diagnosed with cancer really about 3 to 4 weeks before the world shut down for COVID. And so we really were still kind of in a fog of, oh my gosh, how do I have this terminal cancer at 37? And just adjusting to that news. And then we really were isolated from our support system. We couldn't really accept casseroles. So people had to find other creative ways. And so we had lots of porch visits, through the front window, that we would be able to see our friends that way. One of my best stories of support is I have a friend who I always get chemo on Friday. And initially when I started chemos, it took me a couple of days to feel better. And so Wednesday was the day I finally felt better. And so for the last 18 months since my diagnosis, he has texted me every single Wednesday. And he always texts Happy Becca Day. That's what he started calling it. And it's just that I'm so impressed with his, it takes him 30 seconds, but for me, it means the world to know that people are thinking about me, and that he took time to realize that that's the day I feel better, and that it's a good day, and that he's kept it up this long. It just really, as I'm sure everyone knows, initially you get bombarded with all this support and then it dies off. And just to have that continued support is so helpful to me. It just warms my heart. And I am not good at asking for help. People tell me all the time I need to ask for help, and I am terrible at it. And I think a big piece of it is I don't even know what to ask for. So what is really helpful for me is when people just do things or offer a tangible thing. Our daughter's 10th birthday or 9th birthday was shortly after I was diagnosed. And I just didn't even know what to ask for help for. And someone said, let me make her birthday cake. Oh, okay. Yes, that would be great. I would have never thought to ask. I would have just went to the store and ordered it. But offering that tangible thing makes it so much easier for me to accept than having to take up the space to come up with something to give someone to do. But when someone offers that tangible, it's just much easier to accept that help.
Yeah, it's a lot easier just to say yes than have to, you're right. Think of it. That's a great idea. Okay. Peggy, what would you like to share?
I think the most out of the box kind of help I received, and it wasn't my idea. Someone just got together and started asking around for support for braces for one of my kids, just helping pay for that. And so that was one less burden that our family had to take on. And they even offered, hey, we can even drive her to her appointments and things like that, because sometimes that can be overwhelming, adding orthodontic schedule to your already busy, crazy life. And then also words of encouragement, letters and emails and texts from friends, I think were really important. And taking care of not only the patient or the person that's sick, but thinking of the caregiver. Like I got people sending me massage gift certificates. I had then people also offering to come over and sit with Chris so I could go and partake in that massage, and gift cards that were specific to me and not just like, here's, a grocery gift card and stuff like that. So I think that was really meaningful.
Those are really, really good points. To wrap up this question, I wanted to add in something that a dear friend did for me while I was a caregiver for my husband. Like Ellen, I still worked because we needed the income. We needed to be able to pay for the medication and everything. But I had a fairly lengthy commute. And a friend of mine was telling me about a great Max Lucado book that she was reading, and she loved it. And she kept encouraging me to read it. And I said, I would love to read it, but my only free time is in the car. And that's usually when I make calls to my friends and family to catch up, because that is my only free time. And I didn't even want to listen to an audiobook. Like my time was that valuable that I didn't want to do that. So she offered to call me on my way to work, and she read the book to me on my way to work. So like 3 days a week, she would call me and read the book. And to me, that was so meaningful because it gave us a few minutes to catch up, but just having someone else commit that time was something I would have never thought to ask for, but it stands out to me as one of the most valuable things that anyone ever did for me. So I absolutely loved that. So let's keep on this same topic, but go to maybe something that you wish someone would have done for you, but maybe you were afraid to ask, because like we just talked about, like you just don't even know what to ask for. I can think of things that if you said, give me a wish list of everything, that I could do, I could think of it, but I was just afraid to ask because I was too stubborn to ask for help. So I wonder, Peggy, do you want to go? Do you have anything that maybe you had wished that if you could, list out a wish list that someone might have thought to do?
Yeah. I wish somebody would have come over and helped me organize. So I had people come, like I had some people like send a cleaner over once in a while, and I had friends come and they would clean sometimes, but it's just the everyday organization. And when you have complex medical issues, you have all this medical equipment and you have all these bills and all this paperwork and just all the stuff. And we also had 4 kids in the middle of all of this. And it just, just got to be overwhelming. And I'm a year past having my husband here, and I'm still feel like I'm digging out from the last, how many years of just putting things on the back burner. So I know it's a hard ask, but it's some people's gifts, but I just didn't think to ask that at the time. And I didn't realize what a valuable gift that would have been.
That's a really good point to say that we all have different gifts. And it made me think, whenever I see someone hurting, I'm always a little bit insecure because I'm not that person that can go cook a casserole or cook a meal and deliver it. Like acts of service is not my gift, but you need somebody to organize. That's my jam. Like, to me, that would be fun. And I would love the opportunity to do that for someone. So I really appreciate that you shared that. Becca, do you have anything that you would wish for?
In the thick of it, I can't think of anything tangible, but I do wish that people wouldn't always, I appreciate people asking how I am, but I don't always want every conversation to be about my illness. I wish that I could have conversation with my friends that were just about normal life and what's going on in their life. I think people are very apprehensive to share their struggles with me because they feel like they aren't the same as mine or are less valuable than mine. And I genuinely care about them and their struggles too. And I want that normal dialogue and that people aren't afraid to ask me questions about my struggles, and that they'll still share their struggles, that we can still have good conversation and those relationships.
That is so powerful. And I'm really glad that you shared that. I can remember some of those similar conversations. Like, I could remember people at work I could just tell they didn't want to come near me because what are you going to say? How's your day going? It sucks. I'm having a terrible day, like every other day. So they would kind of be, afraid to come near me. And I would just say, tell me about your day. And they're like, no, you don't want to hear about my day. It's nothing compared to yours. I'm like, yeah, but if we talk about yours, we don't have to talk about mine, and exactly. I'll feel better. But I'm with you. I think that's such a great tip to share, is we want to hear other people's stories. And I can speak for myself and probably all of us and say, we don't want to monopolize the conversation all the time. It's completely okay not to talk about all the trouble in our life. We want to hear someone else's trouble. Well, we don't want to hear somebody else's trouble, but we want to hear the normal stuff. So that's awesome. I appreciate that you shared that. Ellen, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, kind of to piggyback on what you and Becca were talking about, it can be very isolating even when you're around people. And I think you kind of touch on it, that it tends to be the focus of, if it's you or your loved one that's sick, that it becomes the primary conversation, and people are incredibly apprehensive to keep you posted on their life. And you feel like you're missing out doubly, because sometimes you physically can't get to the activity because of what's going on, and then you don't even get to hear about it. And so that I just piggyback on what you say, that it's really, I wish people felt more comfortable kind of sharing the good, the bad, and everything in between. And I appreciate that, because I've been on the other side where I've kind of been apprehensive. So I've learned to that, and hopefully can take that forward. The other thing I have not felt comfortable asking, because it feels too big of an ask, but I wish people would offer to do night shift. I am really tired. I am exhausted. In fact, I hope I don't start crying. We are kind of going
But
through
if you do, it's
time.
okay.
Okay. We're kind of going through a little hard time, and I'm really sleep deprived. And like you were talking, Kim, you know, I carry the insurance. It's important for me to continue working. And my husband has had a lot of issues at night, and he's up a lot at night and requiring my eyes on, somebody to have eyes on for safety issues. And I'm really tired, and it feels way too big of an ask to ask somebody to come in and do night shift. But if someone volunteered that, I would just, oh my gosh, be over the moon to be able to just have a night where I can get some sleep. So that's kind of a big ask.
No, and I think it's such an important ask. And I love that you shared it, because I had a very similar experience to you. As we got closer to the illness being very just significant portion of our lives, I felt like more and more people were afraid to help out. His disease was very similar to ALS, and required constant care. And like you, I worked up until the day that he passed away. Not necessarily because I always wanted to, but because we just didn't have an option financially. But that is the one, I will echo what you said. I'll wrap that up and echo it, that is the one thing that I was always afraid to ask was, would someone please spend the night at the house? I was happy to sleep on the couch, sleep in a spare room, if someone would just let me get about 6 hours of sleep.
Yeah. Uninterrupted.
Yes. Yes. Most nights were probably 4 to 5 with some interruptions in there, but I wanted just one night of good sleep. But I was always afraid to ask for that, because I thought, well, who's going to want to spend the night? Right. And I think it was also a case of family members didn't realize how significant that was, because I was afraid to speak up and to ask for it. So I hope by just having this open conversation, that anybody watching that has a loved one that is either a caregiver or is a patient, that maybe they'll consider that and say, you know, maybe I could spend the night just so that they can get a little bit of sleep. I think that's really helpful. I wanted to add in one little thing, something that I wish I would have asked for and really could have used help with. I had a teenager that turned 16 during this time, and I needed someone to teach her how to drive. Like, after dealing with 24-hour care, I didn't have the bandwidth to get in the car. I had no nerves left, none whatsoever. So, it takes a lot of patience to be able to teach someone to drive. And I just didn't have it. And I would have loved to had someone say, hey, do you care if we just take her out and teach her how to drive and give her some experience? So I'll put that down for my wish list of something that would have been helpful. So the next thing I wanted to ask, and I hope someone has one, is maybe someone who had a well-intentioned idea or tried really hard to be helpful, but that help may not have come across as much help as they would have liked to. Ellen, you want to go first? I see you first on my screen, and I had you up last, but do you have anything that you might be able to share? And you don't have to, you can change all names to protect the innocent.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be vague with relation. Family, close family. felt that they would be helpful in wanting to get invested in our finances and asked a lot of financial questions and wanted us to use their financial planner and wanted to kind of go and do inventory of Brian's things. And my family culture growing up is that finances are very private. And so it threw me back. And actually, I think their intention was probably sincere, but it was really offensive to me. And I had to remind them a couple of times that actually had that under control. I, as the spouse, was quite capable of looking after those issues for our family. And so again, I don't think it was meant to be patronizing or overstepping, but that's how I took it. And I don't know, finances are kind of a tricky thing, you know? And so I could go on forever about that, but that really stuck out for me as really being something I didn't appreciate.
No, and I think that's a really good point, because finances can be a very sensitive issue. And it's just a good example of someone that is well-intentioned, but maybe the delivery didn't come out as they intended. Becca, do you have anything you can share with us?
You know, I feel like I could write a book on the funny things people have said to me, but I can't think of a tangible thing that someone has done to help that hasn't really been helpful. So,
but do you have any funny things then that someone has said that was well-intentioned?
Okay, I'll tell you the best one I have. I shortly after really my first scan after diagnosis, after treatment, was much improved. And so I was telling a family member that, okay, chemo seems to be working. We've made improvements. Scan looks better. And she said to me, well, do you feel better about having cancer now then? No, I don't think I'll ever feel better about it, but thanks. What do you even say to some of those comments? You know, and honestly, I know people just don't know what to say. And so funny things come out and I'm able to brush them off, but we could write a whole list, I'm sure, of all the things people have said, well-intended, and just didn't sit that way.
And you know, that is so true, that point about people just don't know what to say. And I found myself, like, I was guilty of this before I became a caregiver. Like, absolutely. I was one of those people that I didn't know what to say. So I didn't say hardly any, like, I just avoided all conversation or all awkwardness. But now that I've been through it, I've been a caregiver and I've been through this whole situation, I found that all that uncomfortableness for me is completely gone. And it's easy for me to ask some of those, what I would say are uncomfortable questions, or check on people when I feel like a lot of times other people will kind of just dance around and pretend like the situation isn't even happening at all. But I mean, I know as a caregiver and as a family member that I really appreciated when people sincerely ask even the hard questions. So I think that's a really, I'm sorry, but that's probably my favorite one. It's not funny, but it is. It was well-intentioned. So we'll give them that. Okay. I lost myself already. Peggy. That's who we're going to go back to. Peggy, do you have anything you'd like to share?
It was well-intentioned. They were bringing meals over and helping with a GoFundMe and different things. But every time they came over, or a lot of times they would come over unannounced and visit. And I was like, I don't really have time to visit. You know, you're trying to not be rude. And then they would criticize everything about my house or about how I was doing things while they were over. Like, you really need to get a housekeeper. And, you know, you should really do this or that or the other thing. And you're like, thanks for the meal. And you're trying to like get them out of your house because that was like the last thing you needed to be thinking about, is having people come over and criticize everything about your house or what you're doing or how you're caregiving or how you're raising your kids or whatever. So
And I
that
think
was difficult.
all of those situations you're probably not happy about, aside from caregiving or, you know, having a terminal illness. And I think that just multiplies the difficulty of that situation. Mm-hmm. I have one I want to share with you guys. This is probably my favorite, most well-intentioned act of love that could have just backfired horribly. When my daughter was a teenager, she was probably 14, 15. She was in an agriculture class in high school. And one day she came home from school and said, Mom, we're doing this project where we can all buy a pig and raise it, and then we'll sell it at the end of school. And she said, can I do that? And with everything, you know, you're doing 9 million things at once, I was like, no, we can't do that. But I think what I actually said was, no, we can't afford that. Meaning in my brain, I could not afford that. I didn't have the brain power to add in a pig on top of all the other duties that I had. So I said, no, we can't afford that. And I just forgot about it. Well, about a week later, I got a call from her ag teacher. And he said, Miss Bohannon, this is so-and-so from the high school. And I just wanted you to know that all of the teachers here at the high school have decided to pull together and we're going to purchase a pig for your daughter. I said, what? I'd completely forgotten about our conversation about the pig. And he said, yes, Emily came to school and told us that your family was not able to afford a pig. So we've decided we're going to pool our resources. We're going to buy a pig so that she can have one to raise. Because they knew that my husband was sick. And I was like, that is the most awesome thing ever. But our family cannot take a pig right now, because all I could think of was, I got to build a pen for this pig. She will never feed this pig. I'm going to be out there every night after giving him a shower. I'm going to be out there feeding this pig and all the other things that went with it. So I kindly just let him know that we would not be able to manage a pig, but we really appreciated that the high school was going to pull together and help us get a pig. So just something to think about if you're trying to help someone, make sure they have the actual ability to manage, not just pay for that item. Oh, I love it. So it's also a reminder to us as parents to be careful what we tell our kids, because then they go back and repeat it. So I just have visions of like all the parents at high school going, oh, that poor family, they can't afford a pig. And so we're going to have to pull this $50 together to pay for it for them.
That's great.
Oh, so, okay, let's talk about, since I just mentioned kind of the teachers at high school and they all knew our family, let's talk about community. And I'm wondering, Becca, can you talk to us about what types of community that you rely on, or who do you consider your community?
We are so blessed. We have a huge community. And honestly, our family, our true relatives are not on either side. They are not helpful. They've kind of stepped out of our lives since my diagnosis. And so our community isn't our family, but we've gained all these other families. Friends of ours started a Facebook page and it kind of blew up, and it's been this great way to reach out. And we've actually had to start a second one because there's over 1,000 members in this page, which I keep telling people, like, I don't know 1,000 people. But it is, connection that have this great group. And so we've had to start a smaller one of more close circle people. I work as a nurse practitioner, and my work family has been a huge asset to us. Our daughter does competitive cheerleading. And so that community, the gym she's at, has been a really good community and support for us. Kind of all of those avenues that have been, my husband works out of a gym. His gym has been very supportive to us. And we renewed our vows about 3 weeks ago, and we limited it to 50 people, which was really, really hard to do because we have so many amazing people. But it was great to see a lot of the people there didn't know each other because they came from kind of these different worlds of our community. And we were able to have all of them from different aspects at one time in one place, which was huge to just have that community.
Awesome. Ellen, do you want to share with us?
Yeah, we kind of we're really, really blessed too. I feel very, really, really grateful. It's kind of a mixture of family. So great that way. And then also, Brian's no longer been able to work for quite some time, but his work community did this really thoughtful fundraiser for our family and have just been really good about keeping in touch. And randomly we get cards with gift cards in it just out of the blue because it feels a little like Groundhog's Day. I'm very grateful we're still here and I'm still having the opportunity to care give. But it's been a long road, you know? So for some folks, like Becca, I think you mentioned, it can be really heavy up front. And then after that initial crisis point, after Brian had his pancreas out, there was a lot of support those first 3 months. And then people kind of got back on with life. And, you know, then we found out he had metastases and it's continued for us for 4.5 years. So those random work community people, my work community, the kids as youth group leaders and parents from youth group have done some really thoughtful things to reach out and be our community. I would be amiss not to say IOH. I'm in a new position at work, so I haven't been able to be quite as connected to IOH, but I know that community is there for my whole family. When I can, I've tried to jump on the Friday prayer time. So I know it's kind of like that great old high school friend that you can go weeks and months without talking, but you know they're there. And that's really helpful to know that connection after a 3-day retreat. And I'm 3.5 years later, I still consider them part of my community.
I agree. Peggy, what would you like to share with us about your community?
Well, we have an interesting story. It's never too late to advocate and change your situation. So with ALS, we didn't know how long we were going to be in our struggle. And so right at the beginning, we needed to sell our house because we were in a 2-story house. And so we ended up selling it in a week, and that was quicker than expected. And so we had to figure out what we were going to do. And my husband wanted to move back home to Minnesota. So my husband and I are both from Minnesota. So that's how we ended up there. And our whole married life, we never lived close to family. The closest we ever were was like 3.5 hours, and mostly like days away from family. And so it was quite an adjustment. And at the beginning, everything was great. Everybody was helpful and had that honeymoon period. And then things just went south. And the winters in Minnesota are hard enough to deal with without having difficult family to also complicate a terminal diagnosis and whatnot. And so we didn't know how long our story was or what the end game was going to be. But in the middle of it, we decided to move back to Utah. So we moved back to Utah in 2019. And it was year 4, 3.5 or 4 of diagnosis. And Chris seemed fairly stable at that time, but it quickly kind of picked up speed after we moved. And we realized we probably were closer to the end of Chris's life that we knew of, but we moved back to the family we choose, which was our church family. And they rallied around us the whole time, even when we were far away. We got a lot of support from them, but it was nice to move home and get the support that we were missing. And then even continuing after Chris passed away, I have many people still coming over, helping with things, and just knowing that I can ask them anything and they'll help. And so not many people end up, so Chris ended up living a year, just over a year after we moved. So we didn't know how close we were to the end game, but still very thankful that it ended up being such a positive experience. I wouldn't recommend moving in the middle of a terminal illness, but you have to do what you have to do sometimes.
That's a good point. And I appreciate what you shared. We had a 6-year journey with multiple system atrophy. And in year 1, we moved. Thankfully, we didn't move very far, but we did have to downsize and move to just since he had moved into a wheelchair, we had to move into just a 1-level house. Like many of you, our church family was our rock. We were so blessed and continue to be, that we have a small church that just rallied around. I did not have any family in the state, just my husband's family, and both of our work families became just very significant to us. I think I can't remember if it was Ellen or Peggy just said that, I think it was Ellen, that his work sent gift cards from it. It made me think of you because our very first trip to the Mayo Clinic, in his first year in, it was a 1,000-mile drive for us. We couldn't get on an airplane because we couldn't afford it, because he had just quit working to try and get his diagnosis. His work delivered a box to us full of cards of encouragement, and each coworker had placed a gift card in there that provided us funds to gas cards to drive, fast food cards to get meals, and enough cash to pay for a couple of nights of a hotel. So it really, really helped us out. But our community just became what I would say a patchwork of people that just loved us and cared and wanted to support us. And definitely after we met Inheritance of Hope, they have become a significant part of our lives to this day. Each of you know the team at Inheritance of Hope is top notch. Every single person, every staff member, every volunteer, they're here because they just love caring for the mission of serving others. And you couldn't ask for a better family. So I love my Inheritance of Hope family. But I think Peggy kind of brought up this point, and I wanted to touch on this. It's been my personal experience and our family's experience that disease is somewhat of a dividing line with some friends and some family members. And I think you maybe mentioned the honeymoon phase, where up front, maybe it was the first year when things were critical, everybody wanted to be there and everybody was there to help. But it seemed like the harder things got, and the less that we were able to participate in life. So for example, he was in a wheelchair, unable to speak, unable to eat. Everyone not everyone, that's not fair. A percentage of family and friends just got uncomfortable with it. And we saw them less and less. And I just wondered if any of you could speak to that, or just your experience or how you felt about it. I'll just add in with our experience, I quickly learned that it didn't serve us well to be upset with any family or friends. I felt like they just honestly didn't know what to do, and they were uncomfortable or afraid with dealing with this terminal illness. So I just gave them grace and gave them a pass and said, it's okay, because I knew for us that God was going to put someone in place for every person that couldn't be there. So I just wondered, Ellen, do you want to speak to that in any way?
Oh my gosh, that just really spoke to me, Kim, because I feel the same way that, um, I think it's managing expectations. And so I've learned like, don't have expectations of anyone. So then everything is just really fabulous. You know what I mean? Because you're not expecting anything. So anything you get is gravy and bonus. And quite frankly, I don't think I have the reserve to be disappointed and angry with people that I've had relationships or that we love and care about. I just don't have that reserve. And so I think too, that's been really helpful to give grace. And then another thing that I have found really helpful, it's a kind of a tangible thing, but every morning I try to take 5 minutes of meditation and then to write in my gratitude journal. And oftentimes it's people that have done something really kind the previous day. And it may be something very, may not seem like a big thing, but like a extra warm hello or a card or something. So that's really helped me kind of navigate when I've seen other people sort of carry on with life, and sometimes you feel a little left behind, to be honest. And the other thing that I think sometimes is very hard is I come from a family of planners, and I know my sisters are well-intentioned. I love them to bits, but they want to plan our sister trip like for the next 2 years, and I can't plan tomorrow hardly right now because I do not know what tonight holds. So that's hard. People are making plans, and it just makes me feel like they're not really in touch with our reality. And but again, I think giving grace to that's really important, because I'm sure I've been on the other side of that and didn't realize I was doing that either. So
yeah, I think it makes you acutely aware of for myself, I feel like I've inherited a whole new empathetic gene that I never had before. So I've definitely learned from that. Becca, do you have anything that you would want to share?
I will say ditto to everything Ellen just said. Absolutely. My husband says a lot, gratitude over expectations, that we're more grateful than our expectations. Because we've absolutely dealt with that people just can't deal with it. And I keep having to remind myself that this isn't everyone's gift, and that those people don't love us any less. They just don't have the gift to be caretakers or to sit in the rain with us right now. And I am just hopeful and pray that those people will still be there when I'm gone for my husband and daughter, that those relationships can still rebuild and regrow after that too, and that he can have grace for them, which I think will be hard for him. He definitely has more bitterness in the people who have walked away than I have. But then also planning, I have to tell people all the time, we can only plan until the next scan. And then after the next scan, we have to start over. And so we can only plan about 3 months at a time. And then, and even that, like there gets to be, the scans next week. Well, I can't plan anything until after that. And then also Ellen said, that it's the people that you are so grateful for. And I think Peggy kind of touched on it earlier, when visitors stay longer. And I think one of the greatest gifts is when people text me and say, hey, there's a package on your front step. I left your favorite drink on the front step, and they're already gone. They had no expectation to see me. They just knew, like, I know you like this, or someone dropped off a gingerbread decorating kit Christmas time. And it was just like, I saw this at Target, thought of you and Lila, it's on your front step. And those kind gestures with no expectations in return are so grateful, and just really warm your heart and help you stay connected and feel included and thought about and not forgotten.
Those are really good points, Becca. And I think, even though I was a caregiver, just listening to things that you all have shared, I'm already thinking of ways like, gosh, I need to be a better friend to my friends that are caregivers. And I need to remember to do some of these things that I wanted them to do for me. Peggy, do you have something that you could share with us, or some perspective on this?
I think it's just important to just learn how to advocate, because people can't read your mind. And as hard as it is to ask for help and ask for those tangible things, you just, especially when you're in the long haul of a disease, you don't know. So I think just honing those skills early on, advocating for your family and trying to keep them safe, and people can be helpful, but sometimes it's not the right kind of help that you need for your family. And so you need to advocate and put boundaries in place. Mm-hmm. Like you had mentioned before, Ellen, with finances. And that's really hard. But when you're dealing with illness, that's your first priority, is take care of your family and keep them safe. And my motto always has been, you can't do everything, but everybody can do something. So even though, there's lots of people that can't deal with the day-to-day caregiving or whatever of a disease and illness, but there's something, if they wanted to, that they could do. And so I just try to tell everybody to, you can't do everything, but you can do, each of us can do something. And so I have lost friends from advocating and lost family members from advocating, but I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't go back and change anything. I think it taught my kids a really great lesson on how to speak up and advocate. And now that things have the dust is kind of settled, so to speak, I'm hoping that I can help other people in more of a tangible way now that I'm on the other side of it. So
I love that you said the word boundaries, because I think it's something that I know as a caregiver, I struggled to create. And it reminded me of a family member that tried to be very helpful. And I didn't create a boundary that would have made the situation more helpful. At the time, we were talking about how much we love to garden, and my husband just loved seeing a garden. So one time while we were at one of our doctor visits to the Mayo, and we were gone for about 2 weeks, we came home to find that they had planted us a garden in our backyard. A fairly sizable garden in our backyard. And you all know what that requires: maintenance and work. So as much as that sounded fantastic, and we really appreciated that they took the time to plant that garden, it meant now we were out there weeding a garden and working on it. So I probably should have done a better job of setting that boundary and saying, no, that's not really something that would help us. But I think it just kind of goes to, everyone wants to help. They just don't know how, or they just don't know the best way to help. And so I think we're kind of coming up on a point where we want to wrap this up for everybody. And I'm wondering if each of you could share something, either something especially significant, or something that you want people that are watching this to take away from this with. And so Becca, would you care to go first and
Absolutely.
maybe just share something?
Yeah, I actually have 3 things that I want to share. First one is I want people to know that if I decline your help once, that doesn't mean stop asking. If I decline your help 10 times, keep asking me. I think when I turn people down, they get offended and don't want to keep asking. And so I would just encourage people to keep asking. And then it was really important for me to give people tangible ideas of how to help. And one of the things that I guess I kind of wish people would have done for us is, when you sign up for a Secret Santa and you get this sheet of paper that says, tell us your favorite drink and tell us all your favorite things so your Secret Santa can get you good gifts, right? I wish someone would have done that for us and maybe for each of our family members. You know, what is your favorite drink? If you're going to treat yourself, what would you do? Where do you buy your groceries? So if we want to get you a gift card, we're buying it to where you're going to go shopping. You know, where do you get your gas? And then what are things you don't like? What are meals that would not be helpful? Or some of those things that then could be shared with our community. So when people did want to help, there would be this, okay, here's some ideas of things we know they're going to like. And then also early on when we were diagnosed and everyone wanted to help and we didn't know what we needed or what would be good, my sister created an Amazon wish list. And people could just join that wish list and we could put anything on there that we needed. And, you know, some of it was basic household things like laundry soap, just to help burden the everyday expenses. Some were like phone chargers. Like all of a sudden we realized we needed more of those. Some of it were books about cancer to help our daughter, or activities to keep her entertained while I didn't feel good. And it was so easy. Everyone's got that digital on their phone. They'd get an email that we added stuff and they could just add it to their cart and it got shipped to us, you know, without them having to do anything. And so it took a little time on our part to add things. And I couldn't always think through what we needed, but my sister was there to say, what about this? What about this? You know, even we added even an Alexa on there, like an Echo Dot. Again, then I didn't have to get up at night to turn, oh no, I just said her name. And so now she's like listening on my device.
Alexa, stop.
But I didn't have to get up and turn the light on at night to take my medicine. I could just tell her to do it. And so some of that was really helpful.
I love that. Those are such good tips. Peggy, do you have anything?
I love the Amazon idea. I thought of that later on. So yes, I think that's a good one to add. I think just realizing back to like the when we're talking about thinking outside of the box, I think sometimes people get caught up on trying to think of some original way to help. And sometimes it's the practical stuff that, you know, that people need help with. I had somebody offer to come and pick up my laundry and wash it and bring it back. And so we ended up not doing that because everyone in my house did their own laundry and I only had my husband and I's to do. And so I was like, well, you know, my kids can keep doing their own laundry, but that was an awesome idea. And so I think sometimes just thinking about, well, what do you do every day? You eat, you have clothes, you need groceries. I mean, all these tangible things. And so just like I said before, everybody can do something. You can't do everything, but just simple words of encouragement that we talked about before. I mean, there's just so many things that you can do that are so helpful and so meaningful to people.
Thank you. Ellen, what would you like to share?
Yeah, I'm kind of going to give a shout out, and it's a work in progress for me. So working on doing my own advice here is it's really easy to get very consumed in your loved one's care at the expense of not taking care of yourself. Like routine dental maintenance. I'm embarrassed to say I had not been to the dentist for 4 years. I had a tooth that finally started hurting and it forced me to go. You know, just our normal health screens, mammogram, colonoscopy, all of those things. It's like, whoa, this is really important. I need to be here for my children too. And I can't, as the caregiver, lose sight of not taking time to do those things because they're important. Our health is important too. And to be okay in doing that. And I'm working on it. I'm not by any means perfect. I'm not working out every day. I'm doing small steps because I found I've become a little more sedate because my husband is much more sedate with his health issues. He used to be really physically active and is not able to anymore. And I find I sit with him a lot. So the importance of if you're in the caregiving role to not neglect your own health in the process. So that would be something I would want to kind of encourage others to do as I'm trying to do it for myself as I'm saying it.
I get it. And I appreciate that you said that, because we haven't even touched on that. And it's easy to say, very difficult to do. I wanted to add in a couple of things that I thought of that I think would have been very helpful. Haircuts. I wish someone would have come to the house and cut my husband's hair so that I didn't have to or cut the kids' hair. I did finally get to the point where I learned how to give him haircuts, because it was just too traumatic to get him out and, take the time off of work to do it and everything like that. But, it's little things like that. Like you said, like routine appointments, that if I had someone that said, hey, do the kids need to go to the dentist? I'll take them, which would have saved me, lots of time. So small things like that. I love the Amazon wish list idea. I think that's really valuable. And I didn't even think of this at the time because I was too stubborn to ask for it. But if I could have had one person that would have stepped forward and said, let me just manage all of the help for you, all of the ways that people want to help, that would have meant the world to me. So like we've talked about, so I didn't have to think about what I needed to ask for, because if I had someone else that could ask, I wouldn't feel guilty asking for those things. And then that person could manage that was great. The idea of what are your favorite things? The Secret Santa list. That is tremendous. What's your favorite flavors? So that way, if someone just wants to do something wonderful, they can drop off, your favorite milkshakes. We had really close friends that owned an ice cream stand, and about once a month they would make up a package of milkshakes in my husband's favorite flavor and give them to us to keep in the freezer so we could just pull them out whenever we needed them. And I was like, how thoughtful is that? It was wonderful. But I think we could probably come up with 1,000 different ways that people could help. But I have one last thing that I'm going to add on being helpful. And I think each of us has touched on it just a little bit. And that is allowing us to kind of just talk, whether as a patient, as a caregiver, a family member. Just allow us to talk, and you don't have to fix anything. Just, you know what, maybe I just need to vent for the day. I need to vent every day. And it could be about 1 million different things unrelated to any disease or illness. And so I think that goes along with just giving people permission. It's okay. Just allow us to vent. And I don't have any expectation that you're going to fix anything, that you're going to say anything wonderful to make it better, but you're just going to allow me to get it out, and then I can move on with my day. So I want to add that in. I just want to say on behalf of Inheritance of Hope, thank you to Becca, to Ellen, and to Peggy. I have loved getting a chance to talk to each of you. I feel like I have several new kindred spirits because I think in each of our own ways, we've been able to share with people that are watching ways to help those that are hurting. I want to wrap it up by saying thank you on behalf of Inheritance of Hope. So if you're watching today and you have been a family member served by Inheritance of Hope, we love you. You are still loved. And I hope that you'll consider paying it forward, whether it means volunteering to help serve another family member, or whether it means making a financial donation to allow another family to be served. Or maybe you're someone that doesn't know anything about Inheritance of Hope and your family is in need of a retreat. So I hope you'll consider applying for a retreat. I think each of us could speak to the fact that you will absolutely fall in love with this organization. We continue to love everyone that's a part of the organization. We continue to serve. And one of the things that I love most is once a family member, always a family member. So on behalf of Inheritance of Hope, I just want to say thank you to everyone watching, and thank you to the panelists tonight. I hope you guys have a great evening. Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye. Thank you.